Hi, I'm Maud Mostly. My pronouns are they, them, and this is the other team's Too Queer for a Career, a monthly series that dives into different aspects of the music industry with individuals who are passionately working in their respective areas. My guest today is a photo taker, music video maker, creative space creator, and so much more that you will hear about. Would you like to introduce yourself, what you do, and kick us right off with why you're too queer for a career?
Well, I am Rae Mystic with Rae Mystic Productions, and I'm too queer for a career because I'm hella ADHD and I'm always following the dopamine. Yeah. Hi.
Totally fair.
Thank you for having me on here.
I think so many people can relate to you because I think as many of us know, there's not this like inherent connection between being queer and having ADHD, but it's pretty common.
Yeah, it really is. Also the word queer I love so much. I personally identify with it, but it for a long time it was used almost like as saying something, oh, that's peculiar, that's
Mhm.
weird, which a lot of elder queers and elder gays don't like that phrase because of that. But I'm also like, I am a weirdo and peculiar, and I'm pretty gay. So it feels good for me identifying that all the time. And so a part of that is like neurodivergence, just like not like neurotypical people not understanding that, what I try to make a superpower within myself seems really strange to neurotypical people and whatever. So it's hard for me to have a normal career, as weird as the word normal is. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I totally get that. I think that's why there's always still the, push to continue like the politics of queerness, that queerness is not about normalizing queerness. It's about the fact that to be queer is to be not normal in the way that you are going against, cis normativity and heteronormativity. And that's where we see all that like reclamation of being a menace, being a freak, like all of these things that have been being queer that have been historically taken back and
Yeah.
reclaimed to be like, yeah, I am freaky. I am a menace. I am going to be this. Like, I love all of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, and the freedom to be yourself in any way, whether it's with your sexuality or with your gender identity or lack thereof or whatever. It's like, you know what? This is who I am. This is how I play, this is what I do. And for me, queer is very much like this is a really great umbrella term for just me as a person. It's easy.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. I love the word queer. But then speaking more about the queer work that you do, and a large part of what we'll be talking about today, you introduced yourself as being from Rae Mystic Productions, and you are Rae Mystic. So can you tell us
Yeah.
a little bit about how you got there, a little bit of what your experience with building yourself as an artist, as a creative, as an entrepreneur? Like, how did that all happen?
Well, this is in the beginning. When I've had a camera in my hand since before I can remember. And I recently was talking to family, like, I was like, when did this all start? Because I don't remember. And I used to steal the family cameras, the photo cameras, and we had an old like JVC, is that the brand? Like mini VHS cam, like handy cam type thing. And I would make little skits and film stuff. And so that's where using cameras started for me. And then I guess when I was 16, I decided I want to be a photographer, because I had loved working with video, but that seemed too difficult at the time. And so I really just wanted to do photo. And something that along this journey of being a photographer and living out this dream, I had to learn how to do everything. Graphic design. I had to learn how to use what I had and make my own sets and use lighting that I had because I couldn't afford, I didn't have a nice camera. I didn't have lighting. I had nothing. I had absolutely nothing. So I had to learn to create something out of nothing. And then as time went on, that was so many years ago. And sometime last year, I was like, I love making sets and I wear all these hats. I really want to make a production space and I also want to get into video. Like I want to do video. And all at once I kind of was like, I'm going to do I wear so many hats. I want to do everything. I'm going to give myself a job and create a job for myself where I can do everything and help facilitate things. And so, so I became an official business this year, but I've been doing the work for over 10 years. But yeah, so it went from making little videos and becoming a photographer, going to community college for photography. And also interior design was also a minor of mine that I kind of hated because it was too neat and tidy and I'm a mess. And so I just like decorating. So yeah, I went from video to photo. Then I was like, I need to do bigger things. And I've always wanted to make music videos. And so I really just like ran for it and was like, hey, everybody that I work with, I want to make music videos. I work with musicians primarily. I want to do this. And then it just started happening and I started making them and I ended up being pretty decent at it. So now I'm just continuing to climb this little ladder that I have created for myself. I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm kind of doing it and I love it. So is that a good description of the beginning?
Yes, I think that's incredible. I also love, there's always this idea of like all of the best work starts with play. And I feel like I saw that just all throughout your story where you were like, well, I love doing this. So I just started doing it. And then I thought this was really exciting. So I started doing that. And I also love that there was this like full circle moment with you being like, oh, video is too complicated right now. I'm just going to do photography and then coming all the way back to like, I want to do video right now.
Yeah, well, when I was little, I used to, because I'm also sing, which is something that's a whole other different world of things. And I had music time in my room every single day as a kid, and I'd sing in my room and I would visualize music videos. I could just see them in my head. And I was like, wow, I wish that I could make something like this happen. And as a kid, like I'm talking as young as 7 years old, seeing the images in my brain and wishing so bad that I could make that a real thing. And then look, like now here I am today and it's like, oh, I wish that you only knew that like little me knew how that dream could come to fruition. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I think like especially in the queer world, there's always that I want to tell my like child self that this happened for us. And I always love the idea that it's like, well, like you are your child self. Like tell
Yes.
you now, be proud of you now. Like
Yeah.
take so much space for that. Cause it's like you don't have to be
Yeah.
like, oh, we can't be excited about it. Like, yeah, you
Yeah.
can.
Yeah, you think about all the times as a kid where you felt like misunderstood or you felt like not cool enough, which is something I struggle with every single day, which we'll get into because of the industry stuff. You with followers and how popular you are or whatever. That's a whole rant that's perfect about this industry. And I always feel like I'm not cool enough, but I think about when I was younger and something I'm really proud of that I have conversations with child self all the time. And I'm like always giving them a little pat on the back. It's like, I never strayed away from being weird or wanting to do a thing when friends, family, or whatever was like, oh, yes, frivolous artist. You just want to be an artist. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
And then I never gave up on that. And I'm doing it full time, which is crazy. I just did my first photo book with a band And I gave my family a copy and I signed it for them. And it said, hey mom, look, I made it. Thank you for inspiring me to prove you wrong that I could make it as a full-time artist. That's literally what I wrote. And I was like, enjoy. Love, Rae.
Oh my
And so
gosh.
I'm an asshole. Can I cuss? Can I cuss here? Is that bad?
Yes. No, that's
Okay.
okay.
Yeah, so I'm kind of an asshole in that way, but yeah, I never let go of the vision of like I want to create, and you know also being a young queer person. When I've always known. I watched Titanic when I was 5. Okay. And I was like, I want to marry a girl that looks like Rose. You know what I mean? Like, I just was like, I want to be Leonardo DiCaprio. And then, of course, like compulsory heterosexuality fogged my brain for so many years. But when I was in the 8th grade, I had a girlfriend. My first girlfriend, she made me feel really, really positive about being queer. And pansexual and everything, and being like, I can love anybody. And in that time, like I I was so afraid because that was in like 2007, I think, when I was in middle school. And it wasn't a cool thing. I think there were 2 couples at the school that were openly queer, and it was me and then another couple. And with what I'm doing now and how I primarily work with queer folks,
Hmm.
I work with a wide range of people, but primarily queer folks, and that's who I like to work with too. And I think about it and I'm like, wow, like who I was in 8th grade, you know, and like this is such a cool time traveling moment. I call it time travel when I'm like thinking about
Yeah.
all these past memories. I'm like, oh, I get to time travel and have these conversations with past afraid queer self. And we're I sound wild, but it's like all of the different me's in
Yeah.
time are having conversations simultaneously, like, wait a minute, this is good. I'm glad we did this. There's a purpose behind this. Yeah.
Yeah.
I rant. I'm a rambler.
Oh my gosh, no. I am completely with you on everything you're saying, and I love it. I love these moments of like queer joy, of celebration, of being like, I did this, I made it, I'm doing what would make, previous versions of me so happy and so proud.
Sure.
I think that alone is a reason to so many of us are too queer for a career, is we're like trying so hard or like wanting to make our younger selves proud and happy and do things that they felt like they couldn't do. And we
Yeah.
want to show them that they can. And I love that. And you did just briefly mention, part of that was really publishing this recent photo book, which I believe was with We Are the Union, right? As far as the
Yes.
band, yes.
Yes.
Which is so cool because I also believe you shot the album cover for Ordinary Life as well, correct?
Yes, which is wild because I took that photo way before um I had even known of We Are the Union, before the band. I started working with the band at all. And I was trying to do, like taking creative portraits to make prints. I took that photo because I was like, I like dark things and taxidermy and skulls and stuff. And I also love beautiful pink floral things. I love the juxtaposition between dark and light. And so I was like, okay, I'm just going to take this picture. It didn't do very well. I didn't sell very many prints, but I still had some photos from that set on my website. And so when Reed, the singer of We Are the Union, when she was in the process of looking for an album cover to represent this collection of songs that talks about coming out as a trans woman, she saw the my gallery that I had, and she saw some photos from the like cat skull and the
Mm-hmm.
flowers or whatever, and she was like, this really, I feel like, really represents me coming out and blah 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 and all this stuff. And I was like, this is so cool because, like, I don't know, I never thought that, like, that photo that I took would turn into a symbol that is an icon for so many queer and trans folks right now, that
Hmm.
it's for, of course, for We Are the Union, it's their photo, it's their image, but I'm so connected to it, and Reed and I both are so connected to it because something that I created for myself 4 years later turned out to be what she wanted to use to represent herself.
Hmm.
And it's this like beautiful line of just connecting, and yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's so powerful. And I think it really, highlights the work that you do with musicians. Because as you mentioned, you work both within and outside of the music industry. But I've personally had the joy of really seeing that music industry side of things, because there are so many, particularly queer musicians that we love, that we've talked to on series like Tunes Tuesday, that have done photo shoots with you, that use them to announce tours, and that, have them as these album covers, and that, cover their social media in them, because they're just some of the coolest photos I have ever
Thank you.
seen.
Oh, thank
Um,
you.
yeah. And do you feel like you got into that like music side of the work through that like previous connection? You mentioned you had to music, like growing up singing and enjoying that side of things. Did
Yeah.
it just make immediate sense that those two worlds would come together?
Yes. So my first gig ever, once I had some rinky-dink camera that I had when I was 16. My first gig was with a rap group, actually. My friend's brother was in a rap group and they were like, "We need photos." And I was like, "Cool." I got paid $40 to take some photos. And I was like, "Yep, this is my job now." And I've always been connected to music. My grandfather was a booking agent and also an Elvis impersonator. So I had an at-home Elvis growing up. And so,
That is
yeah.
incredible.
Oh, he's still my at-home Elvis. Now that the Elvis movie's out, I'm like, Elvis is a piece of shit. I got at-home Elvis, which is not a piece of shit. And so yeah, I had at-home Elvis booking agent. And then, I surrounded by music and I was singing, and I also loved going to shows. I was one of those people where in high school I've always had mental health issues, and I had dates of concerts written on a whiteboard, and over it said reasons to stay alive, and there was just dates of concerts. And when I was in college, I was like, I'd love to be a concert photographer. And one of the first shows that I shot was because I hit up a band. One of my favorite bands at the time, and still kind of now, is the band of Montreal.
Hmm.
I grew up loving that band, being obsessed with that band, also a very queer band. And so I hit up the manager or the booking agent or whoever it was back in the day. And I was like, "I'm in college and I'm a photographer and I'd love to do concert photography. And so, you know, can I come shoot for Of Montreal?" And I got the okay. And so I went to the show and I shot, and that was the beginning of my portfolio. Was I shot Of Montreal for fun. And then, so when I decided to do music for fun as an adult, not as a kid, I was in this like punky kind of band. And then the ska situation, I was in a ska band. Um, and I took all of our photos. I took even our live photos. I told my friend, I was like, "This is how you take photos like me. Please do that." Um, and so, and I also was taking photos of other ska bands. And then I was introduced to the band Half Past Two,
Hmm.
um, who is a ska band now, and I still work with them. And it's because I was in a ska band, I played with Half Past Two. I was a singer. And then, of course, I met Tara, who's also a singer and who's now one of my very good friends. But this was in 2016
Hmm.
when I kind of entered the ska scene in high school. I knew some people that were in ska bands and stuff, and that's kind of how I ended up in a ska band too. Um, and then working with Half Past Two for so long, I was shooting their shows. And then once people started seeing my work or word of mouth or whatever, I just started getting more gigs to shoot shows. And it always made sense to me. And now, um, sometime this year, I've had 2 or 3 gigs now with, with people, or that were facilitated by people that I've played in bands with back in 2016, 2017. So it's all been connected to music, which makes me very happy, because I don't have time to go to shows anymore like I did when I was in high school to see bands that I like,
Hmm.
but I'm always surrounded by music. So when I'm shooting shows or doing video or photo for them, I have a moment where I step back and I'm like, wow, I'm still surrounded by music. This is awesome. I'm living the dream. Like, way to go, me, pat on the back. um, yeah. So long story short, I always felt like it makes sense. It makes sense that I always have been in the music circle.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I also like, I love this idea of just like how ska bands and music forms is like the essentially like this idea of like, if all your friends jumped off a bridge, would you jump off a bridge? But like, if all your friends joined a ska band, would you join a ska band? And you're like, hell
Oh
yeah.
my God. It's so funny. It was easy for me to kind of become a part of the ska scene, because when I started singing as a kid, I was like, I want to be Gwen Stefani. And
Yes.
Tragic Kingdom was still relatively new when I was a kid. And so I was just like always singing those songs. And um I for a long time, it wasn't until recently where I was like, yes, I am a ska person, but I've never considered myself a ska person. That's not really what I listen to at
Hmm.
all, like whatsoever. And then I realized, I was like, wait a minute, I do like ska. It's just not the ska that I thought, was that everybody was into. And now that I've been in the community and I'm such a huge part, I don't want to say that sounds weird. I guess I'm a big part of the community, kind of. I don't know. Um, I've just learned so much about the history of ska, and
Hmm.
so many bands that were either inspired by ska bands or have, you know, different pieces of it. And I feel like it's a really cool lifestyle rather than the music part. It's my favorite community I've ever been a part of.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I think
So
it's
awesome.
incredible, especially like how queer the ska community is at this
And it
point and
always has,
how queer it's
yeah.
been for a long time and how little that's known because it's like straight white dudes of the 90s made
Oh,
people think
yeah.
that's all that ska was. And like anyone who's still
Yeah.
holding on to that can like keep making jokes without understanding like the
Oh,
full
yeah.
like potential and existence and reality of the current and like ongoing community.
Yeah, and it's so wild too, because we can talk about punk rock and queerness and how all of it has gone hand in hand all of this time. And um, you know, I've had conversations here and there with people where I'm like, the ska scene is such a safe place for queer folks. And where it isn't safe, I feel, is those, because sometime in the 90s, a bunch of cis white men decided to take over the ska scene. And where cis white men just love doing that, in every way, shape, and form in history. So, yeah. And so I feel like a lot of what ska is and was supposed to be in this community got kind of lost. And there are some shitty people that have been a part of it, and now that people like Jer, for who is Scott 2 Network, Jer is amazing, and
Hmm.
Reed from We Are the Union, like very queer, awesome people, like are I feel like I'm seeing a lot of that. Also, I work hand in hand with both of those folks, but like so many people love them and see them, and physically being a safe space to be
Hmm.
when going out to shows. A lot of queer folks are, especially in like red states, I noticed on tour, where it's like kids will come out to shows and they feel happy and they feel safe and they're
Hmm.
having a great time, and watching that and being able to photograph that or take videos of that, and being able to see that in my point of view and my job. I'm like, this is so amazing to witness, because now I feel like, you know, let like skas having all of the queer, people of color, trans people, like how it was being pushed back into the front, which is really cool to see, because let's face it, all the best things come from people of color and queer people. So we're getting all of that back, which is really awesome to see.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's such a beautiful part of your role that you get to really see how much that representation matters, like how much that is a reality. People always talk about representation, and there are a lot of problems with like just talking about representation, or people who like really focus on it because everyone's like, oh, there's this one idea of representation, and if we just like hit this checklist, then we've got it good. But
Mm-hmm.
when you just see what that representation can mean to somebody, and also when you can like point a camera at it and capture that joy and capture that happiness and that euphoria, like that's huge.
Yeah, one of my favorite moments at a show that I captured was, I believe it was in Baltimore this past year. It was the We Are the Union tour. We Are the Union on tour with Eve Six. And in Baltimore, there was a circle pit happening, and someone had a trans flag like as a cape, and they were running around in the circle pit. And I know Jer had talked about from stage they could see um the trans flag from the stage, and I could see it, capturing it in the circle pit. And there's footage out there of this circle pit with the trans flag as a cape and like in the wind. And I'm like, wow, like this is so powerful and cool, because it isn't that long ago where people haven't felt safe to be in a public space and do that.
Mhm.
you
Yeah,
know it's so special. I
that
think I get
is.
really emotional about it all the time,
Oh
because
my gosh.
it's so rad.
Yes, that is so rad. There's so much there to get emotional about. Like, I
Oh
just,
yeah.
every part of like my trans being, could cry so easily about something like that. So you
Yeah.
say that, that's like a show highlight for you, or like a highlight in the past year for you. What do you feel like is an highlight from like your overall work in general? What's something that stands out to you?
My first music video is a big one. Um, I did a music video. I mean, I've done music videos, but the first one where I like got paid to do as an official music video for a band was for a band called Saltwater Taffy, and there are also multiple queer members in that band. And it's I wrote and directed and filmed and edited blah 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 this music video, and it is about, the song is about escaping an abusive relationship. And so I brainstormed with the singer who wrote the song, and we landed on a really cool, like, dream state, like kind of David Lynchy story about um uh having a dream that hit this person with your car and you're trying to save their life because you accidentally hit them with a car, but
Hmm.
then the music video ends with you hit them with your car and you actually just drive away. And it's really powerful because, like, when you're in an abusive relationship, you want to just keep fighting for it. It's like Stockholm syndrome, kind of, even though that phrase isn't even a real thing, that I just have no other better way
Hmm.
of explaining that. But where you are kind of just like, you're stuck in a situation with someone and you feel like you can't really leave and you'll do anything for them. And how powerful it is when you escape that. You're like, wait a minute, I don't have to care for this anymore or water this relationship anymore. And so it's kind of like a weird thing. Like, yes, it was a hit and run, at the end. And it was just a dream sequence that they had saved this person's life. But it felt really good collaborating on a song, not only that had a topic of like, that had the topic of substance that I was familiar with, but
Hmm.
also being able to visually create a story for somebody and connect with them on that level. And then also being really proud of how it turned out. And it was my first time writing. It was like a short film kind
Hmm.
of. And I'm still so proud of that video today. Like I just love that music video so much. And so that was a really big thing for me because like I said, I always wanted to do music videos. And that was the catalyst. And when some people in my community saw that music video, they were like, Rae, you need to start making music videos. And I'm like, yes, this is the start.
Yeah.
This here it is.
Yeah, for sure. I think it really speaks to the fact that, and I feel like we've been talking about this a lot already, but like when you can really relate to somebody's experiences, like whether it be because you can both, relate to a similar sense of like queerness or survivorship, and you can actually work on something together from that angle of shared experience, you can
Mhm.
capture something that people from the outside just can't, not because they like don't have certain knowledge and not because they like don't care or aren't empathetic or aren't understanding towards like someone's particular experience, like not because they're bigoted or anything like that, but it's just like there's a different way that you can say like I see you, I see your work, and like this is how we can really bring that sense of really being seen to life together.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's a big reason why I like working that with like why I like working with that band particularly. The band Saltwater Taffy, they're a little band local to me, and I just feel like I the singer Jay, they are such a good songwriter and talking about their experiences emotionally and a little bit here and there with queerness. And I'm just like, I feel you. Like we can create something together out of this. And I feel like, our ideas mend well together. Which has also been that way with We Are the Union. Um, being able to sit and brainstorm ideas. Or I did one music video for We Are the Union, which was for December, which I was really excited to do because that song is probably the heaviest song on the album. And
Mm-hmm.
it is about like saying goodbye to, the part of you and saying hello to like I'm a trans woman, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's Reed's experience talking about that. And I felt like that music video deserved so much. And I was so excited to brainstorm with her about what's a visual story like, so if I incorporated like actual transitions, visual transitions with a doorway, and I felt like that was it was on the nose, but it was a fun symbol to, represent, opening a door and closing a door, but also like an actual physical visual
Mm-hmm.
transition. As well as like the song is about the story of transitioning. So that was really fun to work on too, with like queer people and a music video and queer music and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And really, this like sense throughout your work of really centering queerness. As you've mentioned throughout this conversation, so many of the individuals that you work with are queer and really highlighting that experience and like showing them in a way that, makes them feel euphoric and happy is like clearly such a significant part of your work that is unfortunately not usually what the larger industry is doing and has not been
Yeah.
doing for a long time. We are starting to see some improvements there, but a lot of those improvements are existing because of individuals like you doing that work. So, I mean, in terms of that, but also in any other sense of what you do, how do you feel like your work in general is improving upon what the industry at large has been doing? And, how are you kind of challenging that status quo, pushing for better?
Um, I feel like something I do that I don't see a lot of like I follow photographers and I follow artists and I follow musicians and everything. And something that I feel like my portfolio has which I feel like everybody should have, but I know of some photographers that do not want to display people that aren't conventionally attractive or the default or the norm. And I work with lots of fat folks. I work with lots of people of color. I work with trans folks. I work with a wide range of people, and they're all displayed all over my website. And I'm very proud to have these people that I work with because everybody is beautiful to me. Like, that's another thing about my job is I'm just like, I have the opportunity to look at people and be like, this is the best parts of you. Let's take that and amplify it times a million, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, there have been people in my life that have said some really terrible things about me. And one of the things that I will never forget is someone told, this is a bad thing, but it's also a good thing why I'm talking about, doing things differently in the
Mm-hmm.
industry. So someone random said about me, like, oh, like, I don't know why Rae just has a bunch of like fat, ugly friends and blah, 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 or something like that. And I'm like, wait, why is that even a conversation? What? Oh, there's so many levels of why that statement is so fucking weird to
Yeah.
me. Um, yeah, and I just think celebration of bodies and celebration of everything that makes a person is really exciting to me. And I love connecting with people. So that's kind of something that I feel like I get to do in this industry, or working with trans folks or queer folks and them telling me like, wow, you make me feel so comfortable and safe, and you really know how to like, I've had people tell me, you know how to photograph trans people,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, people don't understand. I don't know. Having conversations with people is easy for me because I get it. I'm non-binary. We want to be perceived certain ways, correct,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if you're talking to like a cis person about it, it's really hard to say like, hey, these are things that I like about myself. These are things that whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to have an open conversation, and for me, it's I don't have to try to be not judgmental at all. It's like, this is you, my client. This is what you want, and this is what's going to make you happy. We will do everything that we can to make you that be amplified in you. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, photo shoots, or from starting a conversation with me till you get your photos and we're done and we're having just friendly connections afterwards, I really like that to be a friendly experience and also an empowering experience,
Mm-hmm.
because everybody deserves to feel beautiful. Everybody, I don't care who you are. And it feels really cool to be in an industry where I get to help people take themselves and have that be amplified visually. But I feel like that I don't care about my portfolio being industry standard
Mm-hmm.
attractive people or industry standard default generic blah blah blah. I feel like that really has like, I don't know, I don't feel like I'm cool enough, because I see photographers that are doing exactly what I'm doing, exactly what I'm doing. We're all doing the same thing, but they have very hot, very skinny, very like top model looking weirdo folks. And they're super popular and they get to connect with all of these celebrities and whatever. And I don't care about that. I don't care about being famous. I don't care about Instagram followers or likes. I just want to be able to connect with people. So as much as I want to be more involved in the music industry, I feel like I'm I feel like the music industry just isn't ready for me yet. That's the nicest way to say it. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
so
I
does
love
that make
that.
sense?
Yes, I mean, it's like the music industry doesn't deserve you yet, honestly.
But really,
They need to fix
yeah,
their stuff first.
yes, that is my positive way of saying it. But unfortunately, at the end of the day, like, whether it's, bigger record labels
Hmm.
or um bigger artists want someone with a name for
Mm-hmm.
themselves already that's done bigger and badder things,
Mm-hmm.
and like, I'm not that person. but I'm also like really proud of my accomplishments and the people that I've worked for. And I have a lot of fun doing it. So it's fine. As much as I wish that I could do bigger things, I'm like, well, it's all about who you know and being at the right place at the right time and all this stuff. But I'm so happy with the like DIY
Hmm.
ska punk or like, like pop punk, uh, like femme or queer bands that I've gotten to work with because these are the only people, not the only people, but these are the people I want to be working with.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, in terms of that, like, and this is one of my favorite questions to ask people in any conversation. But, you say, like, I'm happy to be here. I don't need, this. But what does success mean to you at the end of the day? If you think if of a success for yourself as a photographer, as a videographer, as any of the other, many things you do, as like your production studio, what does that success actually mean? What does it potentially look like?
Okay, so I have never, ever, ever been able to answer this question. I think about it all the time. I've thought about it for many years. And I see, here's the thing is I really do love money. I love money because it's not like I want to be rich billionaire money. I love
Hmm.
money because I've never had a lot of it. And so when I have it, it's security to me.
Hmm.
And it's, oh, I get to fund more creative things. So being full-time video photo production space, being full-time and not worrying how I'm going to pay my bills the next month, that is success. That was my first taste of success. And then I was like, I got some pretty good gigs. And then I was like, wait a minute, like my car is going to crap out on me. I want to start planning to get a new car. And so I spent a year building my credit and doing all this stuff. And then I bought a new car off being an artist, like safe
Hmm.
transportation that works for me. And all my gear fits in it. And that was also, so it sounds kind of shallow for me to say like money or buying a car was my idea of success. But, you know, I was pushed by it, not pushed, but like my family didn't exactly believe in me. Like, you can't make a living financially off of being an artist.
Hmm.
So I had this narrative in my brain, like, oh, to be successful, I must make a living and pay my bills and
Hmm.
have safe transportation and have a roof over my head. And those are the things I have, which is how I personally feel sick. Like right now, I feel successful. I'm just I'm wanting to do bigger things. And so I'm dreaming up bigger things and starting new things. But yeah, this is the first time in my life that this year is the first time I've ever felt successful. And I really do feel like I'm living out my image of what success looks like to me, which is super awesome. But yeah, I feel like being secure is
Hmm.
success in whatever that
Absolutely.
that means, whether it's financially or whether it's in your art or trusting in your art. I feel like that's what success is.
Absolutely. And I would never think that that's shallow, and like nor should anyone else think it's shallow, because I think for so many people, there's this really toxic idea that success is getting a bigger and bigger house, a nicer and nicer car, having more and more and more money, when success for so many people, including like what you just expressed, is like comfort, stability, not having to worry about certain things, being able to feel fulfilled and have your basic needs met so that you can be more creative, because obviously
Yes.
that's such a huge issue in the arts. Is if your basic needs aren't met, it's really hard to be creative, to do any form of art. Like there's that really annoying idea of like being a starving artist. And it's like being a starving artist only exists because people are forced into that position.
Yes.
No one
Yes.
wants to struggle for their art. People just want to create and want to survive. And those things should be able to go hand in hand. And that's not a bad
Absolutely.
thing. It doesn't make you like worse of a creative for like not constantly struggling. Like people don't want to constantly struggle.
Right, right. Yeah. I've had some people too ask me like, "Oh, like how have you been doing this?" Right? Like how did you make that work? And I think at the end of the day I just was like, if I, as much as I want to give back, which what doing another thing that doing bigger things or making more money allows me to do is give back. So I've recently, done it's not done yet. I'm still in the process of editing it and everything, but I shot a music video for a band where, you know, they didn't pay me my full rate, and it was because I love them and I believe in them, and I'm not saying I do this just for anybody, but I was like, you know what, I have the time to give to you and I want to do this because I believe in you and I love you. And being able to do a fun music video where people aren't struggling, like musicians aren't struggling to like get the money to be able to pay me, but like what got me to where I am now is having the strength to say, I am not showing up anywhere with a camera unless I'm being paid. And this is how much money I want to be paid. And it's very scary. And I never believed anybody when they told me that, people will respect that.
Mm.
Being saying, hey, this is how much my time is worth. And it worked. And uh a lot of time and connecting with people, is what got me to full time. But being able to just be like, hey, I'm not going to show up here unless you got your checkbook or your Venmo and ready to pay me, which feels shallow because, you know like, fuck capitalism, but this is how we survive, and I'm very interested in surviving, but
Hmm.
I want to do whatever the fuck I want to do. And so I'm going to do whatever I have to do to not have to wake up every day and go to fucking Starbucks in the morning. And I worked there for like start work at Starbucks. I worked
Hmm.
there for 7 years, and I'm just so happy that I don't do that.
Yeah, and
you know?
I think it's credible that you pass that advice on to others, because most of the advice, or quote unquote advice, that anyone in the arts gets is spend X amount of time working for free. Oh, just do this, just do that. Like, because it's like, oh, people aren't going to pay you for your work until you have this, until you have this, until you have that. And
Oh,
that's a lie people use to exploit artists all the time.
yes.
Because if people just said no, they'd be like, oh, yeah, we do have to pay for this. And that budget does
Right.
exist at the end of the day. They're just wondering if they can cut corners most of the time.
Sure. Yeah, which is so frustrating to me, and I hate it. I could talk all day about how playing the game,
Mm,
using
yeah.
air quotations right now. Um, how playing the game is one of my least favorite things
Mm.
ever. And I have to do it sometimes where I have to play nice. Um, but I think it's so unfortunate that that's just how it is, where people think they have to do things for free. And sure, if you want to be famous and get into some specific thing, then sure, I guess. But I feel like people lose sight of things where sometimes being a full-time artist um doesn't always come in the ways that you expect.
Hmm.
Where for me, I did not think at all it would ever come from the ska scene. There's nothing in my brain. I was like, yeah, I want to do like photo shoots for like weird metal bands. Like, what's that? There's a Twin Temple. I love Twin Temple and I love all of their art. And so I'm just like, yeah, like it would be like something like that, like very gothic and like, you know, sexy. And that's not what happened. But I'm also not upset about it. Um, and it comes in different ways for people. So I feel like when people have their goals dead set on something, I think that's great. However, being open to that being malleable is so important. It's like chaos magic. I'm really into chaos magic, and that basically being, you have a goal, but being open to that being changed at any time, but knowing that you'll get what you want, kind of thing,
Yeah.
and I don't know. And so it's unfortunate when people think they have to do things for free. Or I've seen a lot too where there are people in the industry where there will be like cis male photographers
Hmm.
who I just don't trust ever. Um, they will shoot a bunch of like femme bands. They'll do that for free because they just want to be surrounded by hot femmes. And so, like, good for them. They have people around them that will do things for free for them. But I feel like it gets in the way of people who like are like, wait a minute, like, you know, like, sure, like, take advantage of those cis men, sure. But also, like, oh, I want to take photos for you, but I'm not going to do it for free. So I'm just kind of like, these cis men are also just still getting in the way of queer people all the time, which is really, that's a really interesting thing for me to see is that particular thing happening, or cis men wanting to do things for free because they just want to be surrounded by hot femmes.
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
know?
And I think you see it like across industries too, when there's, and this is why there's so many things like I think about in writing where people are like, hire trans writers to write trans stories. Cause such a big part of that is people being like, oh, we need these like diverse, I like I have such an annoying relationship with the word diversity now, especially with everything it's turned into. But
Sure.
from all the different arts industries, you have this idea of like, oh, we need like this stories about this like diverse thing. We need diverse photos, but we're going to pay the same people that we've always been paying to
Oh my
do
God.
that, and we're only going to look at in front of the camera because we're only trying to prove something to the public. We're only trying to change the public facing view. We don't
Oh
actually want to
yes.
look at the power structures in our own hierarchies, in our own hiring, in our own,
Yes.
formats.
I'm so
Um,
glad you brought this up. My biggest, I'm yelling into the void during Pride time because I'm like, it's so funny, big brands, because sure, the people in front of the camera and all of your stuff is queer coded, right? But what about your production team? I would love to know who's behind the camera. I would
mhm,
love to know who's your producer, who's your director, who's the creative director here, like who's involved. And something I really appreciate about this podcast in general is putting spotlight on behind the scenes people, because it's behind the scenes people across the board
mhm,
that make the people, all the influencers, all the musicians, all of
mhm,
the X, Y, and Z celebrities, whatever, on every single level. It is the behind the scenes people that make those things happen for people, whether it's PR people, because
mhm,
all celebrities have those, where like no one cares about the people who are actually making the moves that, or booking agents are what make shows happen for
mhm.
bands. And I'm just like, yeah, anyway, so when Pride season is among us, I'm just like, oh, I would love to know who your production team is and if they're being paid, very well to help you produce queer stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think there's such a point there where it's like you're seeing queer things and queer images, and sure, whoever is on that billboard or whoever is in that ad hopefully got paid what they were owed. But when you look behind the camera, that's who's getting paid in a more stable way, because you also have so many queer people who model and who choose to be in pride campaigns, not because they want to be in the capitalist portion of pride, but because they're like, oh, this is like the one time a year where I get to make more money because I'm being selected for
Sure.
more things. I'm being chosen in this. But it's like behind the camera, how many of those people have a full time job at that ad agency and have these like salaries and are like, have that stability that anyone in front of that camera is not being given necessarily?
Yeah, sure, definitely. And, I think about agencies in general too, like maybe agencies that represent photographers or videographers or anything for ad campaigns. I think about that too. And I've always been interested in being represented by an agency just to have like consistent work, right? Where
Hmm.
it's consistently coming. And I'm like, sure, I don't mind if you take a percentage out of it. So if I just have stable work, that's fun. And I think about that sometimes and I'm like, well, these people wouldn't even consider me unless I go take photos, try to get a photo pass at a Billie Eilish show
Hmm.
and take cool photos of Billie Eilish and have that on my portfolio. And I'm like, see, look, I took photos of Billie Eilish, even though I had to figure out just how to get a photo pass. Most places will give you a photo pass unless they strictly only use their own photographers. But most bands, most huge bands, you can shoot for but for free and live shows at least. And I mean, most depending on the venue and depending on the manager, they'll just give you a photo pass, you know, whatever. But that's what people want to see is you working with high profile people that are conventionally attractive. And I'm like, I don't really feel like doing that. I don't feel like it. I don't want to do that, which is why I'm too queer for a career.
Yes.
I don't feel like um working with high profile people for free just so I can be a clout chaser and be like, hi, look at this cool person that I took
Hmm.
photos for. It's like, wait a minute, actually all of my clients are super cool in their
Yeah.
own wonderful, beautiful way. It doesn't matter if they have a bajillion followers on Instagram or whatever. Like that doesn't make someone better than somebody else, which is
Oh,
also something that's so annoying
yeah.
in this industry is the amount of followers or likes that you need to have for people to value you,
Mm.
which is the worst. And so I get hit. There was someone that hit me up on Instagram that was like, "Oh, if you need help with your engagement, blah blah blah." And it wasn't a bot. It was an actual person. And I just was like, I know I look like a small account, but I don't need help, friend. I have 4,000 followers and I'm doing just fine in my career. And
Yeah.
people don't want to believe that because people only think they're like if you have 100,000 followers or more,
Hmm.
that is success,
Hmm.
right? And I'm like, "Whoa, not even."
Yeah. And it goes so deep in that too, because people will also, believe that you have to have a certain amount of followers to be able to make something a part-time job, to be able to make something a full-time job. But it's like you can have so many followers, and because everyone's consuming whatever you're sharing for free, because that's how social media works, you're still working at, you use the example of Starbucks before, but it's like I have so
Mhm.
many people in my life who are these incredible artists who like have such incredible work, who put so much time into it and still work part-time retail jobs because followers doesn't in any way equal money, even though that's an idea we've been sold. So it's like
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it's like you can have so few followers and have a full-time job in whatever you're doing because you have community connections, because you're doing the off social media work that social media has tried to say is obsolete, even though it remains more powerful.
Yeah, yeah. And something that keeps me kind of inspired there and not feel discouraged is I think it's called the Thousand Loyal Fans. I think it's was Thousand Loyal
Yeah.
Fans.
Mm.
Like, uh, I don't
Like
know
rule of
what
thumb, kind
rule
of.
of thumb,
Yeah.
right? So basically that being said, that means if you have 1,000 people that spend $100 on you a year, that's $100,000. Is that how that works? That's how that statement works, right? The 1,000 loyal followers thing. Is that what it is?
Yes. I'm double
I don't know how
thinking
to
the
do
math
I don't
on
know how
this.
to
I
do
know.
math. I don't know how to do math. I'm gay. Well, let me break out my calculator. I think that's how it hold on. 1,000 times 100. Yes, 100,000. Okay. Yeah, duh. So anyway, um but how many queers does it take to do a math problem? um
More than two.
yeah. Um, but yeah, so the 1,000 loyal fans, where if you have 1,000 people that spend $100 on you a year, that is $100,000, right? And that's in California, that's basically what you need to make a living. So I think about that, and then I think about, okay, well, if somebody has 1,000 followers on Instagram that are always engaging with them and they are quality followers, wouldn't having 1,000 followers be way more like wouldn't that be way more valuable than having 100,000 followers and maybe only, a certain amount of them are it's all smoke and mirrors when,
Hmm.
maybe a certain amount of them are only spending, so much money on you or whatever. So you just never know. And so I think about that and I'm like, if I do 70 something shoots a year and I'm getting paid my rate, that's pretty friggin' good. But, you know, I don't know. I think about that all the time where, it doesn't matter. But not nobody else, but people don't think about it that way,
Hmm.
which is very, very frustrating. I'm putting my phone on do not disturb right now because I'm getting blown up. Okay. Um,
Speaking of
but
popularity.
oh no. Somebody texted me and told me they got my We Are the Union book in the mail and they're excited about
Oh,
it.
that
Yeah,
is exciting.
we just shipped them out few days ago. And so that's been really exciting. Being able to touch a book that I put together. I'm tangenting and going on to other branches,
No,
but
but this is perfect because I also, we've been talking about some of these like frustrating things and things we don't want to see in the work and don't want to do in the work. But then, like, what is happening in your work right now? We've talked about its history, we've talked,
yeah.
but what is happening now and what are you not frustrated about but excited about that is like currently going on?
My first photo book, which is a collaboration with We Are the Union. We, as in me and Reed and Brent, the drummer and like kind of like tour manager and merch person of We Are the Union. Brent was trying to help me further my career. Like he's an amazing friend and is just always giving me advice about stuff and was talking about doing books and collections. And I'm like, yes, I've wanted to do that. And we were like, We Are the Union book because I did everything from the cover art to all the rollout photos to behind the scenes with the music videos to the December music video and the live shows and the touring. And so I think it was January, we decided that we were going to move forward with that. And the spring tour that was from April to the end of May was the last cycle of live shows
Mhm.
that I shot. And so we had just been working on it during the tour and everything. And then there was the layout designer, Justin Gray, who's amazing. And all of us worked together to create this book. And it's my very first one, which is a collaboration with We Are the Union. And we had the pre-orders in June to celebrate the 1 year of Ordinary Life. And then we got all the books in and shipped them sometime last week. And holding that's another thing that made me feel successful is holding the tangible book, like a hardcover
Mhm.
book. I wish I had one with me right now, but to show you. But anyway, so it's so cool and really, really excited me. But then while I made that choice to do the collab with We Are the Union, I then was talking to Brent about it as well. And I'm like, wait a minute, I should really revisit my 31 days project, which is a project that I started in 2018. I just was like, I want to post on Instagram every day of October of a photo shoot that I do.
Mhm.
And then after I did that in October of 2018, I was like, I want to turn this into a magazine or a book or
Mhm.
something. And I kind of threw it to the side when the pandemic hit. I was just like, I kept putting it off next October, next
Mhm.
October. But when I had that meeting with Brent this past January 2022, was like, I am going to do the 31 days project because having my first book be a collaboration, it makes it a little bit easier because a lot of the people that follow me don't know to buy things from me. They're just like, oh,
Mhm.
I hire this person to do a shoot. So it's like, okay, here's my little introduction to selling something, And then, so since January until last week, which, when this airs, it'll be months later. But, um, it was August 3rd was when I had my last shoot for 31 days, because I reshot some of them. But now, you know, 31 days is going to be a thing, or is a thing. And it has taken 4 years, but that was like the push. Like Brent kind of gave me the push to start doing more creative collections rather than just depending on, having clients. I'm now in my stage where I'm kind of bridging the gap between creating something tangible that you can have, that is my art, versus me doing something for you.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of me being of service, I am now creating art for me that I just hope other people like too. And so 31 days is 31 photo shoots that are they're spooky, or they're Halloween, or they're like horror related.
Mm-hmm.
And some are photos of some of my favorite horror movies, and some are just really crazy, awesome, spooky looks. And that, in the creating process of 31 days, at least this year, like jump starting that fire, has
Mm-hmm.
brought me more joy than anything has. I can't even tell you how much joy it has brought me. And I'm like, I don't even care how well this does. I'm just so excited to be doing it, because it's for me.
Yeah.
I'm like, this makes my eyes happy. I'm so excited. And the inspiration from seeing Song Without a Sound, which is the Watu book,
Mm-hmm.
seeing that, and then I'm like, wait, I can keep doing more stuff. This is something that I can do and create collections, and bridging that gap is so exciting to me. And I'm so proud, and I'm so stoked about the people that are involved. Like for 31 days, the layout designer is Justin Gray, who is the same person that did the layout design for Song Without a Sound, the Ordinary
Mm-hmm.
Life photo book. And I'm just like, oh, this is so cool to have a team of people who, believe in what I'm doing and are really helpful and stuff. And it's just been such a fun process. Such a
Yeah.
fun.
That is so fun and that is so exciting. And I feel like, when I saw the Ordinary Life book and your work in it, I was like, oh my gosh, are there going to be more of these? Like, is this going to keep happening? Because I think it is such an exciting take. And I feel like it is such a fun and such a like for you place to push that work. And I mean, I hear it in your voice, obviously, but it's so exciting just to see in general like how much care and love and passion is going into like that piece of the work.
Yeah. And even from like the first beginning stages of Song Without a Sound or 31 Days, like the very beginning of planning, I put so much care. I overthink everything. Some moments I'm like, what am I doing? This isn't going to do well. And the next moment I'm like, I am a genius. And it's just this like, you know, ebb and flow of insecurity and confidence while
Mhm.
making the thing. But at the end of the day, I'm like, I just want to create something that I'm proud of and that other people involved can be proud of too. Um, and I think it's really special seeing something go from a doodle or
Mhm.
a little idea and then watching it come to fruition. Like with the 31 Days project, I had every single shoot on a spreadsheet, and then I documented where it was in its process, whether I had to re-edit something from 2018, whether I needed to shoot something new, and I documented the progress. And as I was moving something to complete, I had the biggest boost of serotonin. I was like, wow, like just doing that, and
Yeah.
committing to something that is uncertain if it will do well.
Mhm.
There's no certainty in it, and it's just for fun, and it's so fulfilling. And I mean, I hope when that time comes, when seeing how it does in the future or whatever, I'm hoping it does well. And I'm sure by the time it airs, we'll know if it did well or not. But I'm just like, I'm so excited just to be here doing it,
Hmm.
because who knows? Who knows? It may flop. Maybe no one will buy it. Who knows? I have no idea, but maybe it will bring a new audience because I love horror.
Hmm.
I love horror. I love spooky stuff. I love Halloween. I love all things creepy. And that's kind of a subculture that I want to be in way more because that's where my interests lie. Even
Hmm.
my work in general, even just my creative portraits are so inspired by the horror movies and like 70s horror movies. I'm just so inspired by them. I wouldn't be who I am if it wasn't for horror movies. So, I really want to get over there and find those people and that connect with me and we all connect with each other. And so I cannot stress to you how excited I am about it. I'm sure you can tell in my voice and
I
my,
can't tell. And
yeah.
it's amazing. It's amazing. And I love like, I love when, you do art as, your job and what pays the bills, but when you can also just say like, this is what I want to be doing and this is what I will do, and I can have hope for it, but also at the end of the day I'm just going to be glad it's done. Like that
Yes.
is incredible. um
Yeah.
yeah, and that's amazing. And with everything we've talked about today in mind, and I mean, you've been sharing some incredible, just like natural advice throughout. But is there anything particular that you maybe haven't mentioned yet that you would share with others who are looking to get into any of the kinds of work that you do?
Um, I think about this a lot, but I don't want to say the wrong thing. That's what gets sticky. Um, so something that I have done is I 100% have in the past been one like all about hustle culture, which
Hmm.
is very toxic.
Hmm.
And I recognize that. And I have spent a lot of time just staying up all night or going out to make connections, even though I'm tired and I've done that for a week straight,
Hmm.
obviously pre-pandemic. Um, and so I did a lot of that, which I don't recommend people to do because I think people's mental health is really important. But something I noticed was that the moment I started creating things that made me happy, uh, whether it was even posting on Instagram photos that I took for fun that were the style that I was more interested in,
Hmm.
is when I started attracting my people. And now people come to me for photos because they trust that I'm going to make it look cool and that they like my style.
Hmm.
So I hate sounding so cliche, but it really is being yourself and not being afraid to just do whatever you want. And whether you want to experiment with a certain style of something,
Hmm.
experiment with it and think outside the box and mix and mash different time periods or, you know, uh, kind of like watch art or experience art that maybe isn't your art form. Like something that really inspires me is dancing. I love watching ballet. I love watching ice skaters. I love watching hip hop dancing. And I don't dance. I'm not a
Hmm.
dancer. But I love watching dancing because it isn't my realm, but I'm just so hypnotized by dancing
Hmm.
and it somehow inspires me. I don't know. So I think consuming art that isn't your art form and being unapologetically yourself and doing whatever you want is really important. And then making authentic connections, you know,
For sure.
that's important.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, I know you took a second there to, think about how you wanted to say things, but I do think you said them perfectly. And I mean, I couldn't agree more. And I think that's great advice all across the industry, with whatever you're doing, or even if you're outside of the industry and you're just doing it for fun, like that is all so valuable. And I know a little bit earlier we were talking to the fact that especially when it comes to, I mean, photo shoots, there's that really nerve-wracking idea, or, a lot of bands wonder, like, do I need a photo shoot? What benefits do I get from having these photos, or just like being too uncomfortable to take them? So, what do you want artists to know, who are maybe unsure about what that process looks like, or how that process benefits them, or how to feel comfortable with
Sure.
the idea of doing that and getting into
Sure.
that?
That's a really great question, or like a really great thing to think about. Um, I'm not sure how other photo shoots go, like with other photographers, but for me, I value everybody feeling comfortable. So anytime someone is shooting with me, we're hanging out.
Mhm.
It's it's like, I make a day sheet and I make a plan for how the shoot is going to go, but the moment we meet up, we're chatting for a second. We're
Mhm.
having a moment. How's your day? You need to finish your coffee? Let's chill. Let's vibe. Because no one's going to be comfortable. Not no one, but some people, if you're just meeting them for the first time, like, people need to feel comfortable. I also try to have phone calls with people, especially when they're new clients. I try to have phone calls with them. It'll go just like this, like how
Mhm.
we're talking to each other. We're hanging out. It isn't some, you know, I'm not saying I am a professional. This is what I do full time, but it isn't, it's pretty lighthearted. The experience from start to finish. And so, at least, say uh, if I'm working with a band and we're going to be in LA at a production space that we rented out, it'll usually be 2 to 3 hours. I'll spend the first part of it setting up, and they can come early if they want. They don't have to. And then once they get there, we'll hang for a second, and I'll already have all the shots pretty much planned out because I do careful planning, and I'll make little shot diagrams before going into the shoot. And just to have some sort of plan, but there also is free play too if
Mhm.
we want to do something or use a different piece of the location. And I pose people, and I usually pose people in ways where I'm like, I want you here. Stand in a way or sit in a way that feels comfortable to you, and then I will further pose you, because we can all tell when someone's uncomfortable in a photo. And so I've had success with that so far. And then, I after we're done with the shoot, within a week or so, I send them a contact sheet. They pick their favorite photos depending on which package they pick with me. And then I retouch them and edit them and have them back to them. And I try to keep it in a 2 week turnaround time. And tour life has made it so that, I turn around things pretty quick. I've been doing this for many years. Live photos, I turn around within 24 hours. Like, I edit immediately. That's how that workflow goes. And I think it's really beneficial. I'll talk about portraits, and I'll talk about
Mhm.
live performance. So I'll start with live performance. So live performance, I think what's really special about that is that, let's say I shoot a show on Saturday night. I immediately go home and I edit those photos, and my job is to capture the show and how fun it looked. So then that the next day the artist can post about it on their socials, or they can have it to post later to, use us promo to talk about another show. But the goal is to show that people in the crowd have a good time, and that it's a fun, safe space for people,
Mhm.
especially in the queer community. Like, if, you see a video of someone in a circle pit with a trans flag as a cape, all
Yes.
the people are going to be like, wait a minute, I want to do that. And it's showing the authentic fun time of the show, and being able to talk about it the very next day, and also thank people for coming out. So that is what is super valuable about live photos and live video is stuff you can use um in the future. There's a band, Kill Lincoln, that I work with, and I shot photos on tour. They were on a half of the tour with We Are the Union, and I did photos and video for Kill Lincoln. And just the other day, Mike from Kill Lincoln was like, hey, can you put together a little reel for me of the video footage that you took, so I can, you know promote this show. So it's all
Mhm.
promotional stuff. And then for portraits, um I think it's having something that's authentic to you and your brand or your band, or you as a person, as an artist, being able to take amplify yourself past a selfie. Selfies are great. Those are also very popular to post. There's nothing wrong with that, and using what you have. But having professional photos, it gives you the opportunity to work with a creative and have someone help you just take yourself and your vision and your sound, put it in visual form and make it pop so that people are like, that is you, and that is a photo of you, like that's very you. And also use as promotional items, like being able to, something I like to provide to artists is, having something where they can easily, like, where the background is blurry enough or where there is space to maybe add text, and they can just take that photo themselves and put it into Canva or put it into something and make their own little promotional poster. And different artists have different goals, but at the end of the day, like being able to create an experience. So if you're a musician making music, it's good to have video and good to have photo to bring visual representation, because let's be real, we're in the time of TikTok and Instagram reels where you have 5 seconds to grab somebody's attention and they're off to the other thing. So we're all trying to figure it out together of how to get people's attention to want to, whether it's listen to your music or hear the message you have to say or connect to people. So that's what is beneficial about all that stuff.
I appreciate you so much with how much you spoke through every element of that, because I love asking this question, because obviously this podcast focuses on behind the scenes work, but obviously in an industry that has had so many harmful aspects for so long. There's so many artists that are scared to work with any aspect of the industry. They want to just do everything themselves, even if they have the budget for help, because there's something intimidating about it. There's something scary about it. So like speaking through every aspect that you just did is so incredible, as far as people being able to say, these are tangible things that I can take, that I can understand. And that even if they don't work with you, that they can then expect from other people. They can say like, I should feel this comfortable with the person that I'm working with. And if I don't, that's a problem. And maybe I should work with somebody else.
Yes, 100%. I wish I had the opportunity like I have with you. So I'm so appreciative of you talking with me, because I wish that people knew the workflow, and how it doesn't just start from when I'm meeting up with them and taking the photos. There's thought put into the final product from the moment that you book the shoot with me. And even afterwards, when I have clients that hit me up months later, a year later, that are like, hey, can you make this asset for me? Can you provide me with these materials? And I'm like, of course, 100%, I'm there for you. Like if you need something changed or cropped or a different edit, I'm there for you. And so I wish that more people knew the amount of work that goes into what I do for people. It's not just taking photos, editing them, sending them. And another thing, like you said, everyone that is in front of a camera should feel comfortable. And not all people do. It is scary. And I've had some terrible experiences being in front of a camera with cis men. And I don't do that. And I never, ever, ever want anybody to be in that situation, especially with boudoir stuff. I do boudoir regularly. And I always, 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 I won't have I usually don't need an assistant, but I always will have consent if they are comfortable with someone else being there. If they want to bring a friend, if they want to bring their partner, please do, because whatever is going to make you feel comfortable is what I value, especially when it comes to feeling beautiful and sexy or whatever somebody wants to feel in front of a camera. Everybody deserves that, and nobody deserves to be in a really weird spot or awkward or abusive spot. And so having that open communication with people, being comfortable, that's top priority number one. Safety in production, and people feeling comfortable. Like on a music video set, it's so funny. I have my little megaphone and it's like hanging right there, and I have my megaphone, and I was on a set with like 30, 40 people directing them. And I'm constantly not to be like annoying. I'm just like, don't trip over chords. Make sure to watch over the chords. Don't trip. I'm like, we need to make sure everybody is safe and everybody is comfortable. Or if I'm posing somebody, are you comfortable? Are you good? Do you need to breathe? What do you need? Because at the end of the day, somebody's paying me.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I want to provide them with something good, but them having a 10 out of 10 experience from phone call of our first talk to later on, is very important.
For sure. Those things cannot be like, I don't feel understated is not the right word that I'm looking for, but I can't think of it right now. So it's like those things can't be put down. Like those things do need to be a priority. Absolutely. And
yes.
oh my gosh, I feel like we could sit here talking for hours and I would be so happy about that.
Yeah.
But as we do come to a close at the end of every episode, I always just encourage, if you have a story of a time that felt like it really hit you, that you were too queer for a career, either like a silly one or a serious one, just like a time that you were maybe working a different job previously or just working in a different place and you were like, oh.
Yeah. Well, don't want to name drop or
feel free to be vague.
Like, put any, but I'm going to be vague. So, I'm a progressive person. I believe in science. I'm a vaccinated person. I also try to talk to people and ask what their pronouns are when I meet them or when we're comfortable enough and we're actually having a conversation. So I'm that type of person, right? So I went to a particular place to help out a studio. And when I went there, nobody was masked, and I understand mask mandates are different everywhere. I personally will wear them at shoots unless it's like, outside or something, or it's one of my close friends. I like to wear a mask when I work. That's who I am as a person. And I went to the help and there was nobody wearing a mask. The only other person wearing a mask was this person who was queer, and it wasn't that I saw them and I knew that they were queer. It's that they were the only person on their name tag that had their pronouns and had their name. And this person that was facilitating this thing was mispronouncing this person, and nobody was wearing masks, and people were talking about how excited they are that this facility doesn't have a vaccination mandate or whatever. And I was sitting there like, this is not the place for me. This is a horror story. This poor person is getting mispronounced, and I could see it in their eyes, just like, oh my God, no one's paying attention to me. And it's very, just talking to people like they're people and respecting who they are is very important. So I was in a space full of anti-vaxxers who didn't wear masks and who didn't respectfully pronoun somebody. And it didn't feel like a safe space. And that's when I was like, God, I'm so glad I work for myself. That is where I felt way too queer for a career. 100%. Yes,
that is such a stressful example of that feeling. I would definitely just be like, okay, bye.
I walked out.
Yeah.
I didn't help any longer. I didn't help any longer that day.
Yeah. That is stressful. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, on that note, it has been incredible talking to you. Thank you so much for joining us on this month's episode.
Thank you so much for having me, Maud. You are so wonderful to talk to. You're amazing. I hope we get to talk again soon one day.
Thank you for listening to this month's episode of Too Queer for a Career. We'd like to thank everyone who made this podcast possible, including Truss of Truss Products for the theme music and Hannah Shafi of FrizzKid Art for the cover design. A special thank you to this month's guest, Rae Mystic of Rae Mystic Productions, who can be found at raemystic.com or at Rae Mystic on socials. Interested in more music and interviews? check out our sibling series, Tunes Tuesday, on the Other Team's YouTube channel to hear more about the music and matters from queer artists you love.